Picture this. North Hill Street, Liverpool. May 1st, 1995. A black Volkswagen Golf cuts off a car in traffic. A masked gunman steps out, automatic weapon raised. The target tries to run. 2 bullets. 14 seconds. 1 man dead on the pavement. His name was David Ungi, former boxing champion. Father of 3. A man so feared that his name alone could end disputes. But on that day, none of it mattered. And what happened next? It turned Liverpool into a war zone. Homes shot up, cars torched, police patrolling with machine guns. All because of one pub, one fight, and 2 men who refused to back down. This is the story of David Ungi. And the moment everything exploded. If you're ready for a story about power, pride, and the price of revenge, smash that like button right now. And drop a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? We want to hear from you. South Liverpool, the world that made David Ungi. To understand what happened to David Ungi, you need to understand South Liverpool in the mid-1990s. This wasn't some glamorous gangster movie. This was Toxteth. This was Dingle. This was real life for thousands of people trapped in a system that had given up on them. Unemployment was crushing. Poverty was everywhere. And into that vacuum, the drug trade exploded. Suddenly, there was money on the streets. Power. Opportunity. But it came with a price. Violence became the language everyone spoke. Disputes weren't settled in courtrooms. They were settled with fists, knives, and guns. In that world, your reputation was everything. Your name was your armor. If people feared you, they left you alone. If they didn't, you were prey. David Ungi understood this better than most. He was a father of 3, a former Golden Gloves boxing champion, the kind of man who could have gone legit, stayed clean, built something. But he was also the patriarch of a Ungi family. And in South Liverpool, that name carried serious weight. The Ungis weren't flashy. They didn't drive fancy cars or wear expensive jewelry. They didn't need to. Their reputation was built on something more permanent. A history of explosive violence that nobody wanted to test. When a Ungi family showed up, disputes ended. No arguments. No debate. Just silence and respect. David lived this contradiction every day. Publicly, he was a part-time car dealer. Just another guy trying to make a living. But privately, everyone knew he wielded influence in Liverpool's underworld. He moved in circles where violence was business and loyalty was survival. And here's the thing about David Ungi. He lived by code. You didn't cooperate with police. You didn't snitch. You handled your problems yourself. In his world, silence wasn't just smart. It was survival. For years, that code kept the peace. The Ungi name was enough to make people think twice, to walk away rather than risk confrontation. But in 1995, someone decided to test that fear. Someone decided the Ungi name didn't mean what it used to, that someone was about to learn how wrong they were. The Cheers Bar, where it all began. Early 1995, a pub called Cheers Bar. That's where it started. And if you're thinking a bar fight sounds small, you don't understand how things worked. The Cheers Bar had been a Ungi family stronghold for years. It was their territory, their space. Everyone knew it, but then it got sold. New owners, new management, and those new owners had connections. They were linked to Johnny Phillips. And if you knew anything about Liverpool's underworld in the 90s, that name made you nervous. Phillips was volatile, dangerous, unpredictable, but more importantly, he was backed by Curtis "Cocky" Warren, Britain's most powerful drug trafficker at the time, a man with reach that extended far beyond Liverpool. So when Phillips and his associates took over the Cheers Bar, they made a decision. They barred the Ungi family from entering. Just like that. You're not welcome here anymore. Now, to someone outside that world, it's just a pub. Who cares? Go drink somewhere else. But that's not how it worked. Being barred from what was once your territory, that's public humiliation. That's disrespect. That's someone saying your name doesn't mean anything anymore. Everyone was watching. Every gangster, every dealer, every person connected to that world was waiting to see how David Ungi would respond. Because how you respond to disrespect determines whether you keep your power or lose it. David responded the way he knew how. He confronted Johnny Phillips, and it turned into a fist fight. Right there, in front of witnesses. David won. Phillips got humiliated. beaten in front of people who would never forget. You'd think that would end it. The old champion still had it. Message sent. But that's not what happened. Winning that fight was the worst thing David could have done. Because now Johnny Phillips wasn't just angry. He was embarrassed. And in that world, embarrassment is worse than getting shot. It's something you can never wash off. Something everyone remembers. Within hours, David's car was shot at. Bullets sprayed across the vehicle. He survived, but the message couldn't have been clearer. This isn't over. You're a marked man now. From that day forward, David Ungi wore a bulletproof vest. Every single day. Under his clothes. Everywhere he went. Think about that. Imagine living your life knowing someone wants you dead. Knowing the streets you once commanded are now hunting grounds. Knowing every car that pulls up beside you could be your last moment. But even then, David refused to cooperate with police. When detectives came asking questions, he gave them nothing. Because talking to police violated the code. And the code was everything. Even if it cost you your life. Every day after that fight, Davvy was living on borrowed time. And on May 1st, 1995, that time ran out. May 1st, 1995, the assassination. May 1st, 1995. A date burned into Liverpool's history. David Ungi is driving through North Hill Street. Just another day. Just another drive. Except it's not. Because somewhere in that traffic is a black Volkswagen Golf. And inside that car are people who have been waiting for this exact moment. The Golf moves. It cuts him off. Fast. Deliberate. No accident. David realizes what's happening. This is it. The moment he's been wearing that bulletproof vest for. The moment he knew was coming. A masked gunman steps out of the Volkswagen. Automatic weapon in hand. No hesitation. No words. Just violence. David tries to flee. Because even champions run when death comes calling. Even the toughest man in Liverpool knows when he's outgunned. 2 bullets strike him. One of them severs a major artery. The kind of injury you don't survive. He collapses on the pavement. North Hill Street. In broad daylight. A former Golden Gloves boxing champion bleeding out on Liverpool concrete. Minutes. That's all it took. The bulletproof vest didn't save him. His reputation didn't save him. The fear his name inspired didn't save him. Nothing saved him. Witnesses scatter. Nobody saw anything. The code of silence activates immediately. Because everyone knows that talking means you're next. David Ungi dies there. On the street. Alone. A father of 3 who will never see his kids grow up. A man whose life revolved around respect. Dying in the most disrespectful way possible. If this story is gripping you, please share it. Real stories like this need to be heard. Hit subscribe and stay with us, because what happened next was even more explosive. The news spreads through South Liverpool like wildfire. Phone calls. Whispers. Everyone knows within the hour. The Ungi family patriarch is dead. Shot in broad daylight. Executed. And the streets wait. Because everyone knows what comes next. Retaliation. Revenge. Blood for blood. The next night, Cheers Bar is firebombed. Flames lighting up the Liverpool sky. The message clear. You started this. Now we finish it. But David Ungi's murder wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of chaos. The war zone. Liverpool descends into chaos. The weeks following David's assassination turned South Liverpool into something you'd see in a war documentary, not a British city. Homes were riddled with bullets. Families hiding on their floors at night, too terrified to sleep in their own beds. Parents putting mattresses on the ground so their kids wouldn't get hit by stray rounds coming through the walls. Cars torched in the streets. Just walking outside and finding your vehicle a smoking wreck. No warning. No reason except you knew the wrong person or lived on the wrong block. Gunmen roaming openly in daylight. Not hiding. Not sneaking around. Just walking through neighborhoods with weapons, daring anyone to say something. Police were forced to patrol with machine guns. Let that sink in for a second. Machine guns. In Liverpool, officers who signed up to keep the peace now geared up like they were heading into combat. Because in those weeks, they were. The community was trapped. Caught between gang violence they had no part in. Innocent people living in fear because 2 men couldn't settle a dispute without destroying everything around them. Children sleeping on floors to avoid stray bullets. Think about being a kid in that environment. Going to bed, wondering if tonight's the night a bullet comes through your window. Growing up thinking this is normal. This is just how life is. The violence was tit for tat. Endless. Every attack spawned another attack. Every retaliation demanded another retaliation. The cycle feeding itself. Getting worse. Escalating beyond anyone's control. David Ungi's funeral drew 600 mourners. 600 people showing up to pay their respects. But it wasn't just mourners who came. Police snipers positioned on rooftops, watching, waiting, because intelligence reports suggested rival gangs were considering attacking the funeral itself. That's how deep the hatred ran. That's how far things had gone. Even death wasn't sacred anymore. Even a funeral could be a battlefield. The spectacle said everything. 600 people mourning while snipers scanned for threats. David's influence on full display, but also the fear, the violence, the sense that nowhere was safe. Not even saying goodbye to a dead man. The media descended. National news, international attention. Liverpool's reputation forever changed. The city had seen gang violence before. Organized crime wasn't new. But this was different. This was open warfare. This was chaos spilling into everyday life. And through it all, one question echoed. With all this violence, all this evidence, all these witnesses, surely someone would be brought to justice, right? The investigation, justice denied. Police identified suspects quickly. Darrengee, Barry Ure, both men connected to Johnny Phillips. Both part of Curtis Warren's wider network. The pieces fit. The motive was clear. The intelligence pointed directly at them. The evidence was there. Witnesses had seen things. Intelligence officers had information. Patterns emerged. Connections mapped out. Everything you need to build a case. And then the wall went up. The code of silence. The thing David Ungi himself had lived by. The thing that defined that entire world. It destroyed any chance of justice. Witnesses refused to cooperate. People who saw the shooting suddenly remembered nothing. People who heard things decided they hadn't. Fear spread faster than truth. Because everyone knew what happened to people who talked. Everyone knew cooperation meant death. The suspects fled abroad. Beyond reach. Beyond extradition. Smart enough to know that staying in Liverpool meant eventual arrest. Smart enough to disappear before the case could solidify. The investigation stalled. Then collapsed. No arrests. No trial. No conviction. Just a file that sits open but forever cold. The Ungi family got no justice. No closure. No courtroom where they could see their father's killers held accountable. Just the knowledge that everyone knew who did it, but knowing isn't proof. Knowledge doesn't convict. The community learned a harsh lesson. Fear wins over truth. Silence protects criminals at the expense of justice. The code that's supposed to protect actually destroys. Nearly 30 years later, David Ungi's murder remains unsolved. Officially unsolved. Even though people know. Even though the names are whispered. Even though the truth lives in the memories of dozens of people who will never speak it out loud. The legal system couldn't penetrate the underworld's code. Courts need witnesses. Juries need testimony. Justice needs someone brave enough to stand up and say, I saw what happened. And nobody would. How many people live with the knowledge of what really happened that day? How many people go to sleep knowing they could give David's family answers, but never will? How many people carry that weight? The silence doesn't just protect criminals. It buries truth. It denies justice. It ensures the cycle continues. Because when violence goes unpunished, it breeds more violence. So what does David Ungi's story teach us? The lessons, what this really means. This story started with a pub, a bar being sold, a dispute over territory and respect. And it ended with a man dead on the pavement, a city in chaos and justice denied. Pride and humiliation. That's what killed David Ungi. Not the bullets. Those were just the method. What killed him was refusing to back down. Was winning that fight with Johnny Phillips. Was believing his reputation made him untouchable. Sometimes survival means swallowing your pride. Sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. But in that world, walking away looked like weakness. And weakness got you killed. Here's the bitter truth. Power offers no protection. David Ungi was feared. He was respected. His name carried weight. And he still died alone on a Liverpool street. All that power, all that reputation, none of it stopped 2 bullets from ending his life. One murder tore apart entire communities. Not just the Ungi family, not just the people directly involved. Whole neighborhoods lived in fear for weeks. Families were displaced. Children were traumatized, scars that still exist decades later. The code of silence doesn't protect communities. It destroys them. When witnesses won't speak, criminals walk free. When fear wins over justice, everyone loses. The cycle continues. Violence breeding more violence. Revenge demanding more revenge. Organized crime promises power, respect, wealth. The reality? Early death, prison, or living in constant fear. David Ungi was 41 when he died. 41. His kids grew up without a father. His family carries the weight of his choices. And the people left behind, the families, the communities, the innocent bystanders who just wanted to live their lives. They pay the price for other people's wars. Liverpool feud. The scars are still visible if you know where to look. In the memories of people who lived through those weeks of chaos. In the families who lost loved ones. In the communities that never fully recovered. Davvy's legacy. David Ungi was a father, a champion, a patriarch. He died over a bar and wounded pride. His murder remains unsolved nearly 30 years later. His story stands as a warning about the cost of reputation in a world where violence is currency. Some prices are too high to pay. What do you think? Could this have been avoided? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And seriously, where are you watching from? Liverpool, UK? Somewhere else? Let us know. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We tell real stories that matter. Stories that change cities, families, and lives. Thank you for watching. Shadow Case Files. Real stories. Real lessons.